Hey guys, you're watching this video. This is part of my owning horse property series for here in Teller County into the mountains of Colorado. I hope you guys enjoy this. This is specifically going to be talking about things you might need that you haven't thought of if you're going to own horses up here in this area. Stay tuned to the end so you guys get all the great information. Hey guys, real quick before we get in that video, my name is James Dean with James Dean, my real estate team, and I just wanted to make sure if you haven't done this already, make sure you hit that subscription button down below, the notification bell. What that does is keeps you notified every time we come up with a new video. We do at least 2 a week, and I just want to keep you updated and just cool things to do, cool things to see out here within the Woodland Park and Teller County area, and you get to see a little bit of how I like living my life out here as well. If you've got any questions or comments, please don't hesitate. Give me a call, shoot me a text at 719-266-2725. You can also email me at info@jdmret.net, and I will get back to you as fast as I can to answer any of those questions or comments. And if you've got any real estate needs out here whatsoever, please, once again, don't hesitate. Give me a call or shoot me that email or that text. This is James Dean with James Dean, my real estate team, the team leader here, and I absolutely love living here, and I love helping people out here in this area too. Hope you guys like this video. Okay, today guys, I'm just going to be breaking down some basic things that you might not have thought of, maybe you have, but just trying to help you know what you need to look at, what you need to be thinking about for what you might need if you want to own horses up here in the mountain areas within Colorado. So if you're like we were when we first moved up here, we were really kind of hesitant to look at horse properties up here just because we weren't sure if it was going to be really conducive to what we wanted to do. We didn't want to, and we kind of went to the extreme when we were thinking about bringing our horses in. We didn't want someplace, where we've got these crazy barns with these massive heating costs and everything, just to have a horse up here or having them blanketed for most of the year and dealing with the snow and all this other stuff. We just didn't know what we didn't know. So my wife and I, what we actually did was we rented a place out in Florissant for 6 months through the winter months when we first moved here with our horses, just to make sure we knew exactly that we wanted to be up here with the horses and not down on the front range where it was a few thousand feet lower. We wanted to make sure this was doable for us because we wanted to live in the mountains, but we also wanted to make sure our horses were well taken care of as well. So please know and understand, I know there's tons of different thought processes out there on what to do with horses. People have different types of horses, different types of mentalities. We're not going to get into that. We're just basic horse people. You can get as crazy with this horse as you want to. And to give you a little bit of background of what I have and what management with horses I have and my wife has, I at one point in time was the caisson platoon sergeant for Arlington National Cemetery. What that means is I ran the horse platoon as a platoon sergeant on the enlisted side for the horses that do the full honor funerals for our nation's fallen in Arlington National Cemetery. I had 66 horses that I was responsible for, 56 soldiers, and 2 horse facilities that I ran in the Northern Virginia and the lower DC area for the Arlington, Virginia area. I did that for a couple years. I would have stayed up there and done that for the rest of my career if they let me, but the Army doesn't let you do that. So I had to move on past that. I absolutely loved that job. My wife and I have had horses since 2000, about 2000 probably 6. We had our first horse in Hawaii of all places. She was a horseback tour guide in Hawaii at Kulo Ranch. Ran that on the windward side of Oahu in Hawaii. We moved to the States shortly thereafter, got a few horses, had some horses there in Virginia. I then ran and managed that barn that was out there in the Arlington, Virginia area with the Honor Guard, and then shortly after became a pilot. But we kept our horses. My wife then ran her own horseback lesson business there in the Fort Rucker area, as well as manage horses and help train horses. And now we're getting right back into that here in Colorado with a lot of things. We've not done a lot with horses here lately, but we've had our horses here the entire time. And now we're starting to get even more involved with that as we've kind of getting into our life goals and what we want to do with our horses. Currently, we built a barn out here, but we haven't had a barn for the last 7 years we've lived here, just so you know. but we're just now recently building a barn in our arenas, and we're going to build our own training facility that we do, and we're going to start that lifelong dream of doing stuff with horses again. I just want you to know that because I am in fact a realtor that has horses, knows horses, loves horses, and has been around horses. Now, like I said, you've got all kinds of different flavors when you're around horse people. We know that, and quite frankly, that's probably one of the reasons why we don't do a lot of the boarding with the different boarding facilities, because everybody's got an opinion with a horse. So I'm just giving you the basic knowledge on this, and you take this where you want to go as a horse owner if you're looking for horse property out here in the Colorado area. So moving here to Colorado, it can be kind of daunting if you've not lived up here this far north before with horses, if you're coming from Texas or somewhere down south, or you've not lived this high with horses and you're wondering, is the altitude going to affect them? Is the oxygen rate going to affect them? What's it like climate-wise? So really climate-wise, what we're sitting at in this altitude, and my wife and I in our ranch is here on our in Divide, you're really looking, at this 9,000 foot range, you're looking at almost living in Montana or just south of Canada in a lot of instances. And I know that sparks a lot of fear in a lot of folks that have horses, but what I want to do is help dispel that, because it's really not that bad up here. Now, we're very firm believers in that naturalistic type atmosphere of taking care of horses. Now, if we've got a show horse or performance horse that we're taking care of, completely different, because you're looking at that show sheen, you're keeping that coat quality where it needs to be. We're looking at blanketing, keeping under heat lamps, keeping under different lights and stuff, just trying to keep that body to where that coat stays nice and shiny. But for our other horses, our everyday horses that we love and that we love spending time with, these guys, we have not worried about blanketing as much or having an actual heated barn to put them in. If you look at these wild horses that are out in Montana, Wyoming, different places up in the northwestern portion of the United States, nobody's out there throwing blankets on these horses. Nobody's out there putting them in heated barns. Now, I will say the caveat this, if we have like a particularly wet snow coming in, or it's going to be an extended blizzard, we will put blankets on our horses at that point. And we've also got runs for them to be able to get in out of the wind on. So wind blocks is very important up here. But for the most part, they're very easy to take care of. So some things you'll want to look at doing for sure, if you're a barefoot person, like you have your horses are barefoot, they're not shoed, just keep an eye on them. Keep a good farrier that's out there that's a natural horse farrier or natural hoof farrier that can keep an eye on those hooves and make sure that they're actually staying where they're supposed to. One thing we noticed, we were barefoot when we moved out here. It worked for a time, but this decomposing granite that we have really started grinding down the hooves on our horses. So what we ended up having to do is we've had to start shoeing them. Even if we're not riding that particular horse very much, we're still getting them shod just so that they can make sure they maintain their hoof and it protects their feet, because feet are very important for a horse. So definitely keep an eye on that as you come out here. If you're doing a lot of heavy riding, you're probably going to be shoeing no matter what. But even if you're doing that light riding, especially the trail riding, the horses' hooves are going to need to condition and going to need to be able to get to that point to where they're nice and hard for all these rocks, because we have a lot of rocks out here. And like I said, just please keep an eye on those. So that is definitely something to look at. Like I kind of already started to mention, for the wintertime, for the first 7 years out here, really all we've had is three-sided run-ins that our horses have been able to get into to get out of snow and rain, which half the time, as you know, if you've owned horses, they don't even go in there when it's pouring down rain. You and I would be like, oh, we'd be in there in a heartbeat. The horse is standing out there with his butt to the wind, and he's perfectly happy out there because he's built and made to be out there in the weather. There are some conditions, though, that our horses are going to want to get out of that. That's if it's extremely cold. If there's a wet snow, they're going to want to get out of it. If there's hail, they're going to want to get out of it. So having those runs is very important for them to be able to make that decision to get out of those conditions if they decide to. Now, to give you an idea on space and land size, we've got currently 50 acres that are fenced in out there. We've only got 5 horses on that. Now, ours is not cross-fenced for management, although we are getting ready to do that so that we can add more horses to our herd now that we're getting our barn built. And we've got about a 10-stall barn that we're getting put in. We've got 4 stalls done, getting the doors in. We've got it insulated. It will be heated because we're planning on getting into some show horse with the reining side of the horse business. That's what we're looking at getting into. But you don't need to have that. But if you're not managing your property, you just need to be keeping an eye on it with the grass that's going down. Now, you hear all kinds of crazy things out here about loco weed and all different types of noxious plants. My experience with horses is that if you've got enough room for them to graze, they're not going to bother those plants. Now, if you start taking a horse and you start wedging it down on how much space it's going to have to graze, they're probably going to eat anything and everything around them, and that's when they're going to have problems with those noxious plants. Something to think about. Now, I know there's probably folks out there that have got completely different experiences from this, and they'll tell you otherwise. This is just my personal experience on it. Now, 5 horses on 50 acres, that's basically a horse for every 10 acres. That seems like a lot, especially if you're coming from the East Coast. But you've got to remember, things just don't grow as fast out here as they do where we get lots of rain. We do get rain in the summer in the monsoon time, but you just got to manage it. You got to make sure you're watching that stuff as it kind of comes down and managing your hay or your grass growth. If you need to, you might need to start supplementing. For us, in the wintertime, we absolutely start supplementing on hay. Now, this is something to think of too, and I didn't realize this till we came out here, but we're at such a high altitude. This hay and grass that's growing up here at this high altitude is extremely high in protein. It's extremely rich, and you're more than likely not going to have a hard time keeping weight on your horse. Just know that. Our horses, we do grain them right now because we are riding them quite a bit and using them. But when we're not riding them a whole lot, they're just straight eating grass out there, or in the wintertime, straight eating the hay that we get from one of our local suppliers of hay up here that will actually have that high altitude type hay. And that really helps these horses in the wintertime too. It's another reason why these horses do so well in the wintertime up here in the mountains. They've got tons of protein, tons of nutrients in this hay that helps their coats. It helps put that little bit of fat on for the wintertime coming in to help keep them warm also. And oh, by the way, speaking of coats, having horses on the East Coast, we always have burned out colors, burned out blacks and different colors. These horses up here are beautiful. They are solid black, solid red. If they're a sorrel, I mean, it's just, they're gorgeous colors, very sharp and vivid colors because of the nutrients we have in the food that our horses get up here. Now, some other things I just want to mention and just talk to you about is you're having horses up here, just remember, make sure you've got a good tack room that's taking care of your tack up here as well. You want to make sure you're keeping your leather very well lubricated because it's going to start cracking and having issues with that type of leather if you're not taking care of it correctly. Also, we use Skidmores quite a bit to put on our leather. That usually does really good in conditioning and keeping that leather nice and supple so that we can use it when we want to use it. Something else that we started doing is we actually hang our saddles from a rope from the ceiling, and we've got a loop that just goes around. It kind of goes up underneath the cantle and then around the horn and holds the saddle there hanging in place. Now, you might be thinking, why are you doing that? It looks like a meat locker, if you've got your saddles hanging like that. Well, the reason is because of mice. When mice start looking, especially in the wintertime, they'll start looking for warm, dry places to kind of get into. What you don't want to have happen is a mice get into your tack room and then chew up thousands of dollars worth of tack and destroy your leather. That's exactly what they will do if they can get to your saddles on there. So we hang our saddles like that so that the mice cannot get to it and can't attack that leather on those saddles. Just a little bit of food for thought on that as well. Some other things to think about if you're going to live up here with horses is you absolutely want to have a horse trailer up here too. And the reason why you want to have a horse trailer up here is because if, God forbid, a forest fire breaks out, you want to be able to evacuate your animals as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. I'm telling you that because this year we really got kind of lazy. We sold a gooseneck trailer that we had. It was a 4-horse trailer when we first got here. We're like, oh, we don't really need this. We're not really trailering as much. We can ride right out of our back pasture and just go right up in the national forest. So we just don't really need that. That was a mistake. This year we had a forest fire kick off in Cripple Creek. It never got close to our house, close enough for us to evacuate, but it was close enough to open our eyes. And we realized right then and there we needed a horse trailer, and we bought one that month. What we never wanted to have to do is just let our horses free, which would have been what we did without being able to get them on a horse trailer and then hope we could find them, or just leave them there, which would be terrible if a forest fire comes up. So definitely want to have that ability to evacuate with your animals if you need to in an emergency as well. Now, going back to the winter months on this, it's always a good idea to have a good winter blanket for your horses just in case we end up with that freak storm that comes in that is an ice storm or heavily wet, or we end up with a blizzard in there. It's just nice. It helps to keep them, if they decide not to go into that shelter, they're at least keeping that snow off them so it's not freezing to their coats and it's causing them to be super cold on there as well. And we do actually buy large bales of hay in the wintertime for our horses, and that's what we do for our horses in the winter. We get a slow feeder that we put them in, and we put those large 3x3x4s or 4x4x4s out in the pasture for our horses to just chew on and munch on. Some other things you're going to think of too is for your water sources for your horses. In the wintertime, you're absolutely going to need heaters and an ability to actually put the water in the trough or whatever you've got going on in stock tank without that hose freezing. And so making sure you keep that hose inside in the garage, hooking it up when you use it, and then bringing it right back in. And then those stock tank or those water heaters that you can put in there, so that way your horses will have water to get to and they can actually access that. That's something that's very important for them to have as well. One more thing I want to talk to you about real quick. We had electric fences quite a bit back east to keep the horses from busting through the fences. We haven't used them here yet. We're getting ready to put some in on our property, but something to think about with the electric fences out here. They might work really well in the summertime. In the wintertime, the problem is if you run an electric fence in a traditional way, you're going to run a hot line around and you're going to have your grounds driven into the ground, so that when a horse touches it, it grounds out with them touching their feet to the ground, and they touch that hot wire and it repels them off the fence, keep them from going through the fence. In Colorado, we've got snow. Snow is an insulator. Snow will not allow that horse to ground out by touching the ground and touching that hot fence. So they could go right through that fence, lean through that fence, not even care if there's lots of snow on the ground. The way to bypass that is you can have tons of grounds in there and hoping that they're going to ground out somehow, or you can run a hot line and a negative line along the fence. So that way when they touch it, if they touch both lines, they're going to make contact and it's going to do what it's supposed to as an electric fence also. So a little bit of more food for thought for you on that with the horses. But if you guys got any questions about horse stuff, please don't hesitate to ask me. I mean, we own horses out here. We're continuing to own horses out here, and we're starting horse business out here as well. So if you want a realtor that actually knows horses, I'm your guy on there. We've got horses. We've had horses out here. We own our land with our horses, and we can help you find the right place for a horse property out here that will be very suitable for you guys to actually have horses at. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. I really hope you guys enjoyed that video. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, comments, whatever you've got, please send them to me. You can call, text me at 719-266-2725. You can also email me at info@jdmret.net. I would love to be your local real estate agent. I'd love to be your local expert. So anything, it doesn't have to be real estate related, please don't hesitate to ask. Let me know what those questions are and I will get them right back to you. I look forward to seeing you guys next time.